Hello everyone, my name is Miss Yemisi. I'm a mathematics tutor. I will be teaching a new topic today in mathematics. The topic is rounding off to the nearest hundred. We're going to learn how to round off a whole number to the nearest hundred. In my previous lesson, I already taught you how to round off a whole number to the nearest 10. Now we're looking at rounding off a whole number to the nearest hundred. So let's get started. The first goal of the lesson is for us to know what rounding off means, which I already did in my previous lesson, but I'm going to be repeating it again. The second goal is for us to know when to round up or round down. Whenever you're told to round off a number, it's either you round up or you round down. Any third goal is for us to be able to round off a whole number to the nearest hundred. So let's get started with the meaning of rounding off. Rounding off means when you find a number that is close to the original number or close to the real number. So let me share my slide with you so that you can see what rounding off means in mathematics, which I already did in my previous class or my previous lesson. You can see what you have on your screen. Rounding up means when you find a number that is close to the original number or close to the real number. It means finding a round number that is very close to the real number or close to the original number. That's the meaning of rounding off. So now let's try to round off our whole number to the nearest hundred. We already know how to round up to the nearest 10. Now the focus of this lesson is to round up to the nearest hundred. So let's get started. I will be using my whiteboard to work with so many examples. So let me quickly share my whiteboard with you so you can see examples of how to round off a number to the nearest hundred. Once you know how to round up to the nearest hundred, we're still going to follow the same rules here. The same rules here. So let's get started. Let me start with the first question. Let's round up this number to the nearest 100. 148. That's the question. This is the number we're going to be rounding up to the nearest 100. Remember, we're rounding up to the nearest 100 in this situation, so we're going to be focusing on the number in the 100 spot. So this is where our place value is very important. So let's try to get the place value of each of these digits. The 8 is at the 1 spot, the 4 in the 10 spot, while the 1 is in the 100 spot. So remember, our focus is going to be the number in the 100 spot because we are rounding up to the nearest 100. So the number in the 100 spot is going to be our focus. So let's get started. So we're rounding up to the nearest 100. So now we're going to decide whether to round up or round down. I already told you, when you're told to round up a number, it's either you round up or you round down. So now if we're going to either round up or round down in this situation, but it all depends on our next door digit. So if we're going to be rounding down, we're going to round down to the previous 100, which is going to be 100. And if we're rounding up, we're going to be rounding up to the next 100, which is going to be 200. But we need to know whether to round up or round down. We need to know whether to round up or round down in this situation. So now, let's go to our next door digit. Our next door digit is the digit in the 10 spot. In the 10 spot. Now, ask yourself, is the next door digit up to 5? Once your next door digit is not up to 5, then you're going to be rounding down. But if your next door digit is up to 5, then we're going to round up to the next 100. So let's take a look at our next door digit, which is 4. So is 4 up to 5? No, it is not up to 5. And so in this situation, we're going to be rounding down to the previous 100, which makes our answer to be 100. So rounding up 148 to the nearest 100, our answer is 100 because our next door digit 4 is not up to 5, and so we're going to be rounding down in this situation. But if our next door digit was up to 5 or more than 5, we will be rounding up to the next 100, which is going to be 200. So let me wipe off the board and let's move to another example. Now. So let's work with this example, and the second example is going to be 468. 468, this is the number we're going to be working with now. Now we're going to round up this number to the nearest 100. So let's try to get our place value. The 8 is at the 1 spot. This is where our place value is very important. The 10 spot. Then the 100 spot is the 4. Now remember, we're going to be focusing on the number. This is our focus because we are rounding up to the nearest hundred. So we're going to be focusing on the number in the hundred spots. Now in this situation, I told you already that if you want to round off a number, it's either you round up or you round down. So for you to decide whether to round up or round down, you have the paint on your next door digit. So if we're going to be rounding down, we're going to be rounding down to the previous 100, which is going to be 400. And if we're rounding up, we're going to be rounding up to the next 100, which is going to be 500. So now let's take a look at our next door digit. That's the number in the 10th spot. That's what we're going to be looking at now. Is the number in the 10th spot up to 5? That's our next door digit. Is it up to 5? Yes, the next door digit is up to 5, and so we're going to be rounding up to the next 100 because our next door digit is up to 5. It's more than 5. So so we're going to be rounding up to the next 100, which makes our answer to be 500. So now we've rounded up 468 to the nearest 100, which makes our answer to be 500. So the last example, let's work with the last example, the final example for this lesson. Let's round this number up to the nearest 100. I'm going to be writing another number now, 798 or 798. This is the number I'm working with now. Now, so let's round up this number to the nearest 100. So let's look at, we're going to be focusing on the 100 spot. So let's try to get the place value of each of the digits. The 8 is in the 1 spot, the 10 spot, the 100 spots. And now we're focusing on the digit in the 100 spot because we are rounding up to the nearest 100. So it's either we round up or round. I already told you that if you're told to round off a number, it's either you round up or you round down. So you have the paint on your next door digit. If it's up to 5, if it's up to 5, you're going to round up. If it's not up to 5, you're going to round down. So if you're going to be rounding down, we're going to be rounding down to the nearest, to the previous 100, which is 700. If we're rounding up, we're going to round up to the next 100, which is 800. So now in this situation, let's look at our next door digit is up to 5, it's 9. And so in this situation, our next door digit is up to 5. And so we're going to be rounding up to the next 100. We're not going to be rounding down this time around because our next door digit is up to 5. So rounding up 798 to the nearest 100, our final answer is 800. The final answer is 800. So you can see it's very, very easy to round off a number once you know the rules. Once you know when to round up or when to round down, it's going to be very easy for you to be able to round off a whole number to the nearest 10, 100, or even 1,000. So that's it for this class for today. That's it for this class for today. I'm very sure you were able to achieve our goals. The first is the meaning of rounding off, and then also you should know when to round up and when to round it. And the third goal is for us to be able to round off a whole number to the nearest, or which you've been able to do for today. Thank you all for being part of my class.